truce. We're just moments away from the first ever meeting between a U.S. president and a leader of North Korea. It is 9 p.m. Eastern and 9 a.m. in Singapore, where President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un are about to go behind closed doors with only their translators for a one-on-one meeting, leaving behind the scores of diplomats and media who have been following them around. Leading up to that moment, there will be a diplomatic photo op. They are scheduled to walk in, right where you're looking now, shake hands in front of the cameras. Shortly after that historic, momentous greeting, the two leaders turn in unison. We're told we'll walk side by side to the room where they will begin these historic talks. We are told that both leaders are on site there. They have arrived. We will take you that moment when they face each other and meet in person for the first time. Let's bring in former Republican chairman of the House Oversight Committee, Fox News contributor Jason Chaffetz, and Republican senator from South Carolina, member of the Senate Armed Services Committee, Lindsey Graham, as we await this historic meeting. Gentlemen, good to have both of you with us tonight.
Thank you.
Senator, I'll start with you. There's been a lot of talk about the president and also Secretary of State Pompeo managing the expectations for this meeting. What do you hope will be accomplished, or what do you think is realistic?
Well, I don't think we're going to solve the problem today, but it's a first step towards solving the problem. You can talk about this all day long, but Trump has to convince the leader of North Korea that he's safer and more prosperous giving up his nuclear weapons than he is with keeping them. And how do you do that? You convince this guy that the incentives to give up your weapons, the security guarantees will be good for you, and if you reject that and try to do the same old thing you've done in the past, we're going to stop your program through military force. He has to believe that or we'll never get a good deal.
Well, Jason, there's so many other key players here who have been on the sidelines and are now front and center. We've got Japan, we've got South Korea, but China looming large here because 90% of North Korea's trade is with China. They have to participate in the sanctions and the maximum pressure, or it ultimately doesn't work.
Yeah, you're right, and the senator's right that the economic sanctions have played a role, and the tough talk and the tough action that President Trump has put into place with China does have an effect on their encouragement to North Korea to actually come and resolve things. But you can't let down on the military side of the equation. When the Senate and the House passed the bill and plussed up the amount of military might, and we put that force forward, I think it was a very clear signal to both China and North Korea that the United States was going to solve this and make sure that nothing happened in the world unless we said it was going to happen. And that tough positioning that Donald Trump has taken is very different than what we've done over the last several years. It changed the trajectory, and now we're having this historic meeting.
And Senator, as we watch this, there's been a discussion about all the different things that could or could not be on the table. Both the president and also Secretary Mattis have said when we're talking about troops in South Korea, U.S. troops going away, they're about 25,000, 28,000 there. That's not up for negotiation. But they are going to talk about formally ending the Korean War, which has just been in a truce for decades now. They're also obviously going to talk about the main goal of denuclearization there. And today we learned as well they want to talk about biological and chemical weapons. This is a very heavy lift on a number of fronts.
Well, there's column A. Column A is all the things you get if you give up your nuclear weapons and your ballistic missile program and you stop threatening us and the world at large. Column A will have security guarantees. It will have economic incentives. It'll be a good package. We're not going to remove our troops because that's what China wants, because that destabilizes all of Asia. Column B is a military confrontation with the United States, which North Korea will lose. It will be the end of the regime. If it's not that clear, we won't go anywhere. Now, why are we meeting? Because they're afraid of Trump.
And, Senator, it looks like now we're getting closer to the moment that these two leaders, President Trump and North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un, are meeting and shaking hands. You are watching history live as it happens in Singapore. It's the first time ever that a sitting U.S. president has gone and met with the leader of North Korea to sit down and have discussions about their nuclear program. There have been numerous talks and agreements in the past between numerous U.S. leaders and North Korean regime. They have all failed. They have fallen apart when someone, and generally it's been North Korea, has not lived up to the deal. Now these two begin what they will do first, which is go behind closed doors, one-on-one with only their translators, none of their diplomats, none of of their staff. The president has talked a great deal about how he feels that he'll know within even the first moment whether Kim Jong-un is serious, whether they can make a deal. He has said this is a lot to do with attitude, with willingness to find some type of compromise. But the U.S. has also said the ultimate goal, as Secretary Pompeo reiterated today, is about completely getting rid of, dismantling, and wiping out North Korea's nuclear processes as they stand right now. We don't even know, truthfully, because it's really tough for intel on every level to find out exactly how many nuclear weapons they may have, the capabilities they have. We've seen numerous ballistics tests and nuclear tests, 6 of those now in recent history. And as these two leaders walk together and talk, they are smiling. They appear congenial. And you see the press following closely behind. After they have this private meeting together, there will then be a more expanded bilateral in which they'll come together with important members of their staff. General Kim, as you remember, will be the one who came to New York and then ultimately to the White House to deliver a letter directly from Kim Jong-un to President Trump, inviting him to carry out this summit for the two of them to get together. On the U.S. side, General Kelly will be there, White House Chief of Staff, we're told, also Secretary Pompeo. And they will get together and get down to brass tacks. But first, these two go behind closed doors, mano a mano. Jason, these two leaders, it's never happened before. What goes on in these few minutes where it's just the two of them and their translators?
I think this is what Donald Trump was relishing. I also think it's what Kim Jong-un was seeking. He wanted respect on the world stage. He has the attention of the President of the United States, but it's a great opportunity. It's exceeded all the expectations. Even just a few weeks ago, we didn't know if this was going to happen, and I think it is a good and healthy thing for these two people to look eyeball to eyeball and chat in person. Put aside the staff, put aside all the other work that goes on. You still need those two people in the same room at the same time to make critical decisions and create a trajectory where we can have a safer world. And
Senator, you know there have been critics on both sides of the aisle about the way the president has conducted diplomacy, the way that he is very direct, that he gives out nicknames. You know how this works with him, and yet this is further along than we've seen ever before with an American leader. Now, critics will say he gives North Korea and he gives Kim Jong-un some degree of legitimacy simply by sitting down with him. You think it's a plus or a minus for these two to meet face to face?
We have nothing to lose by doing this. Let me tell you why I believe that. President Trump, the first time I met him as president, said that he was going to stop North Korea from developing a missile with a nuclear weapon on top that could hit America. He believes he can make it a win-win proposition, but if he has to go to war, he will. No other president has gotten this far because no other president has been that clear. I don't want a war. So you better pray and hope this works out, because if this falls apart like everything else has in the past, then President Trump will use military force as a last resort. But this president and his team has accomplished more than anybody in the last 30 years by being tough and clear. I believe that North Korea is afraid of Trump. They don't know what he will actually do, and they're there because they're trying to find a way out of a box that President Trump has put them in.
And you're looking live now in Singapore as the two have just moments ago met face to face. They shook hands and now they sit down. The media will be ushered out in just a bit so that they can sit there and talk with only their translators as the witnesses to this bit of history. Jason, there's been a lot made of the president's team. Oh, wait, let's listen in. I think we've got some audio here.
Well, it was not easy to get here.
우리한테는 우리 발목을 잡는 그 과거가 있고 또 그릇된 국민과 발행들이 우리 때로는 우리 눈과 귀를 가리고 있었는데 우리 모든 것을 이겨내고 이 자리까지 왔습니다.
The past worked as fetters on our wings, and the old prejudices and practices worked as obstacles on our way forward, but we overcame all of them and we are here today. That's true.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
This way. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
You're
I'll tell you when we got out.
Yeah, you can see the president there as he's chuckling and we're chuckling a little bit, saying, I'll answer some more of these questions once we get the media out of here. Let's listen in.
Thank you. Thank you.
We find so often with this president, when the media is told time's up and it's time to get out, they're still shouting questions often, the press corps with the president, and that is often when we get some of the most interesting comments from him. A little bit there, a little bit of a chuckle and a lighthearted moment as he said he would answer some questions. It appears that Kim Jong-un had a discussion they wanted to have, but that wasn't going to happen while the media was there. So they have been ushered out, and now we will await as they go behind closed doors. We may hear from them afterwards. We don't know how timely a fashion that will happen. But let's show you the handshake again, because it made history just moments ago when these two walked across that portico at a Singapore hotel, shaking hands, saying they will meet together the first time ever, a U.S. president and the leader of North Korea, meeting face to face to try to tackle what is a very difficult, very complex problem, and that is denuclearizing the Korean Peninsula. A lot of players involved. We talked about China, South Korea, Japan. And really the impact on the broader world. We know that North Korea has been testing intercontinental ballistic missiles. There's been a lot of talk about the range that they have, the mid-range missiles that still very much will concern Japan if those aren't addressed in these negotiations. But more broadly, the rest of the world worried about the very rapid advancement and development of the North Korean program. Jason, I started to ask you about the fact that this team is interesting in that we have former UN Ambassador John Bolton, and you've got now Secretary of State, former CIA Director Mike Pompeo. A lot of folks say that they bring different viewpoints to the president. And so he's got really two different angles coming at him with his own team, two different things to consider.
Well, John Bolton comes with the reputation of being very hawkish. He also has the historical knowledge and background from his extensive government experience. Mike Pompeo has the belief and the confidence of the president, and as Secretary of State, and prior to that as the CIA Director, his personally meeting with Kim Jong-un, I think, was the precursor that maybe gave the confidence and smoothed over some of those rough edges that allowed this type of meeting to come to fruition. So I think in retrospect, those two gentlemen have played a very key role, but it's under the direction of President Trump, and I give the president a lot of credit for getting out of his comfort zone and sitting down and doing what a lot of people wouldn't do otherwise.
And of course, Secretary Pompeo obviously was one of your colleagues on the Hill as well. He used to be a member of Congress on the House side. And Senator, there's been a lot of talk from Republicans and Democrats alike about whatever is ultimately hammered out. If this is step one and it takes weeks, months, years, whatever it takes, ultimately whatever is hammered out, they would like to see Congress have some vote in this, some say in this. There was a lot of criticism, both from Republicans and Democrats, of President Obama putting together the nuclear deal in a way that didn't amount to a treaty, so the Senate never got to vote on it in that respect. What level of congressional involvement would you like to see as this plays out?
The highest possible. President Trump has told me that whatever deal he makes, if he makes one, he'll have enough confidence in it to send it to the House and the Senate, and that's the right move. President Trump is nobody's fool. All the critics who are accusing him of this or that or criticizing him, how well did you do with North Korea? So we have a chance here to end the threat from North Korea peacefully. I hope North Korea takes it.
All right. Again, you're watching that historic handshake between the two leaders just moments ago. They are now in private discussions. We will update you shortly. Coverage continues now on Fox News Channel, on cable and satellite. I'm Shannon Bream from Fox News in Washington. We return you now to your regular programming.
All right, everyone, those of you still with us here on News Now, part of Fox10Phoenix.com, we are still taking a live look there in Singapore, where the historic summit between President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is happening right now. You see the media outside. If you happen to miss the president's arrival, Kim Jong-un's arrival, the handshake, we have it all clipped already on our YouTube page. It's youtube.com/Fox10Phoenix. My name is Pilar Arias. You are watching News Now, which is a part of Fox10Phoenix.com. I have gotten word that we are on a lot of Fox stations, Facebook Lives across the U.S. So good evening. Thank you all for being with us. Or even if you're on the other side of the world, if you're in Singapore and it's already morning, good morning there as well.